The guilt-ridden 15-year secret. On a quiet day in May 2023, a weary 37-year-old man named Tony Peralta sat on a curb in Roswell, New Mexico, smoking a cigarette. For 15 years, he had carried a dark secret, one that finally became too heavy to bear. With trembling hands, Peralta borrowed a cell phone at a convenience store and dialed 911 to confess to murdering his former landlord, William Blodgett, back in 2008. Body cam footage later released by police captures the extraordinary scene. Peralta thanking officers for coming as if they were saviors and insisting, "I confess, man, I confess. I don't want to live life anymore without confessing." In the footage, his voice quavers between relief and despair. He leads officers to the very house where Blodgett went missing, a place Peralta had rented 15 years prior. As he is handcuffed, Peralta volunteers to take them to the hidden grave. When investigators pry up floorboards in a side room of the property, the grim evidence emerges. A boot, bone, even the victim's dentures beneath the floor. Those dentures would match Blodgett's dental records, finally confirming what happened to the 69-year-old man who vanished one Christmas Eve. Peralta's confession is startling, not only for its spontaneity, but for the remorse that drove it. He was tired of living with the lie, one report noted. In the interrogation room, Peralta broke down, repeating that he had been overwhelmed by guilt and needed to come clean. Yet when pressed for details about the killing, Peralta claimed foggy memory, as if even he was horrified by his own violence. Police had long suspected him. A witness recalled Blodgett tried to evict Peralta for theft shortly before disappearing, but without evidence, the case went cold. Now, in a twist of fate, the killer himself resurrected the truth. With Blodgett's remains finally found and identified, Peralta was charged with first-degree murder. His chilling 911 call and on-camera confession ensured that a 15-year mystery ended not in a courtroom battle, but in the suspect's own cathartic admission. "I hit her until she wasn't alive." The soldier's murder. In May 2014, police in Fayetteville, North Carolina sit across from a gaunt young man in an interrogation room, the red light of a recording camera blinking. Nicholas "Nick" Holbert, age 25, is about to describe one of the most brutal acts imaginable, and he does so almost casually. Holbert was the prime suspect in the 2-year disappearance of 23-year-old Army medic Kelly Bordeaux, who vanished after a night at a local bar. For 2 agonizing years, Kelly's family and Fort Bragg colleagues searched for her. Holbert had been a friend of Kelly's and was with her the night she went missing, but he'd maintained his innocence. That is, until a relentless private bounty hunter turned investigator befriended Holbert and cleverly gained his trust. Feeling the pressure closing in, Holbert finally broke. He led the investigator deep into the woods and pointed out a shallow grave, Kelly's remains. Holbert was immediately arrested, and on May 14, 2014, police body cam video captured his full confession in chilling detail. In a flat, almost detached tone, Holbert explained that Kelly had learned he was a convicted sex offender and insulted him. Enraged and drunk, he knocked her unconscious and then kept on beating.
I wasn't here, so I hit her again.
Recalls the district attorney of Holbert's matter-of-fact confession. Investigators listening were stunned. Holbert described how after knocking Kelly out, he used her own cell phone to send deceptive texts to her boyfriend, pretending she got home safe. Then he dragged her into the woods and buried her. The autopsy would later show the savagery of the attack. Skull fractures, a dislocated jaw, teeth knocked out, evidence of a very violent death. Yet on camera, Holbert showed almost no emotion as he recounted the blows. He offered no excuses beyond his anger at being mocked for his past. Watching the footage, prosecutors were struck by Holbert's disturbing calmness. It was as if he were describing someone else's deeds. In reality, Holbert's calm came from knowing the game was up. The investigators' bluff and a planted undercover cop nearby had convinced Holbert that indictment was imminent. Cornered, he confessed, and even personally led authorities to Kelly's hidden grave in the woods. Holbert's on-camera confession sealed his fate. To avoid the death penalty, he pleaded guilty and accepted life in prison without parole, but not before chilling everyone in the room as he described the final moments of a young woman's life with shocking bluntness. "I hit her until she was dead." The trunk murder, no emotion, no mercy. September 21, 2001, Chicago, Illinois. A video recorder in a Cook County police station documents an interview that soon turns into a confession. The suspect is Marshall Morgan Sr., a man with a long shadow of violence in his past. Sitting calmly, Morgan Sr. begins to narrate how he killed his girlfriend, 52-year-old Deborah Jackson. Investigators had suspected him in Deborah's disappearance, and now he seems ready to talk. What unfolds on the tape is harrowing in its precision. Morgan speaks in a clear, measured tone, utterly devoid of emotion. As detectives and an assistant state's attorney question him, Morgan describes the unthinkable with icy clarity.
I opened the trunk, placed her body in the trunk of the car.
In the stark video, his face remains impassive. He recounts how he had attacked Deborah. Then, seeing she still had signs of life, he callously shut her in the trunk to die. There is no tremor in his voice, no flicker of remorse on his face in the footage. Those watching feel their blood run cold. It's as if Morgan is describing taking out the trash rather than a human life. Why confess now? When asked, Morgan offers a simple explanation. I wanted to clear my conscience and take responsibility for what I have done, he says quietly. But this statement rings hollow given his flat affect. In reality, investigators suspect Morgan Sr. had other motives. At the time, he was under scrutiny for other suspicious deaths, including that of his own son years earlier, and perhaps hoped a confession in Deborah's case might shield him from deeper investigation. Regardless of motive, the videotaped confession stands as a frightening glimpse into the mind of an unflappable killer. Morgan Sr. had murdered before. Decades prior, he shot a friend to death, and evidence suggested a pattern of killing those close to him, possibly for insurance money. But nothing is as chilling as seeing him speak about it so calmly. Even seasoned detectives felt a chill watching Morgan describe how he saw her hands moving in the trunk before finishing the deed. The lack of emotion is almost inhuman. Morgan Sr.'s confession secured a conviction for Deborah's murder, adding to a life of violence. To this day, that video is shown to law enforcement trainees as an example of a stone-cold confession, a man recounting murder with the same dispassion one might reserve for reading a grocery list. I did that, a killer's instant admission. Sometimes the speed of a confession is what shocks officers and the public alike. April 18th, 2023, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Police respond to reports of two shootings, one at a public library, another at a convenience store, and quickly spot a suspect matching witnesses' description. Body cam footage from an officer at the scene shows the suspect, 59-year-old Carlton Guilford, standing eerily calm outside the Quick Trip convenience store. What comes next is jaw-dropping. As officers approach with guns drawn, Guilford immediately raises his hands and admits to the atrocity. He coolly informs them that he shot two people moments ago, even gesturing toward the weapon lying nearby. I did that, he says, almost casually. The camera records the admission clearly. There's no standoff, no denial. Guilford offers himself up to be arrested with an unnerving composure, as if what he did was unremarkable. The victims, sadly, were total strangers. A 35-year-old man at the library computer and a 55-year-old man at the store, each shot in the back of the head without warning. It was a shocking, senseless double murder, later determined to be racially motivated. Yet on video, the killer shows no panic or remorse. Officers, clearly startled by the immediate confession, ask him again what happened, and Guilford calmly repeats his guilt. According to the police report, when officers arrived, Guilford was standing outside the store and admitted that he shot two people, essentially confessing on the spot. He even led them to where he had dropped the gun. This level of frankness is rare. Suspects usually lie, flee, or fight. Guilford did none of those. One detective later remarked it was as if Guilford wanted credit for what he'd done, his tone utterly emotionless. The body cam video spread widely online, horrifying viewers as the realization sank in. This man had just executed two people and was speaking to police with the calm of someone admitting to a minor infraction. Guilford's instant confession left little need for interrogation. In court, he pleaded guilty to the murders. The chilling footage of him saying, "I did it," became a key piece of evidence and a stark exhibit of how some killers feel no urge to hide their crime at all. A 40-year-old cold case confession. "I knew one day you'd find me," the older man says shakily as he sits handcuffed in the back of a police car. James Curtis Clanton, age 62, had been living under an alias and hiding from a terrible secret for 4 decades. In January 1980, 21-year-old Helene Prustinsky was abducted, raped, and murdered in Colorado, a case that went cold for nearly 40 years. But in December 2019, advances in DNA technology led detectives right to Clanton's door in Florida. When they arrested him for Helene's murder and began the long trip back to Colorado, Clanton was reserved, at first denying involvement. However, as a veteran detective made small talk and established rapport during the drive, Clanton suddenly had a change of heart. In an unexpected moment caught on audio and later on officer body cam, Clanton's conscience cracked wide open. Detective Tommy Barella's body-worn camera recorded the critical moment. In a trembling voice, Clanton blurts out, "I did it." The detective, momentarily stunned, asks, "Okay, you did what?" Clanton replies, "I killed the girl. They're accusing me." Just like that, after 40 years of secrecy, the truth tumbles out. On the recording, Barella can be heard affirming and encouraging Clanton to continue talking. What follows is Clanton's detailed walkthrough of the crime that had haunted Colorado for decades. He describes spotting Helene at a bus stop on a snowy January evening in 1980 and forcing her into his car at knife point. She said, "I'll go," Clanton recalled, explaining why Helene had no defensive wound. She was too terrified to fight. He then admits he raped her and stabbed her repeatedly, leaving her in a frozen field to die. His voice on the recording quivers as he unloads this burden, at one point even saying something had haunted him about Helene all these years. Detectives listening couldn't believe it. After denying involvement earlier, Clanton was now freely giving them every horrific detail, as if compelled by a guilty conscience. In his confession, he chillingly muses that Helene's murder stopped him from becoming a serial killer, that the memory of what he did to her actually kept him from doing it again. By February 2020, James Clanton pleaded guilty to Helene's murder in open court and was swiftly sentenced to life in prison. For Helene's family, who had waited 40 years for answers, Clanton's recorded confession was a godsend. Hearing him finally say, "I killed the girl," brought both anguish and closure. For the detectives, it was a career-defining moment. A cold case killer, confronted with DNA evidence and decades of guilt, choosing to speak the unspeakable. Clanton's confession is now preserved as proof that no matter how long it takes, the truth can surface, sometimes from the killer's own lips.